We are going to have our Q&A session after this, and I see some questions have already started coming in. So I will invite Sharina and Sophia back to the stage along with David, and we can have a discussion about everyone's respective topics. All right, there we are. Excellent. So the first question is for David. Someone asks, how did you handle doing research with such vulnerable communities that might be scared or intimidated or at risk during the process?
Absolutely. It's a really good question. Thank you. So we took a trauma-based approach to our research. We went to places whereby people felt naturally safe. So that was very much in-reaching into the charities that supported these vulnerable people day to day. And we made our in-reach via these charities who could introduce us and kind of express their confidence in what we were doing as being authentic. We took a lot of time to very clearly explain the purpose of our research, what would be done with their insights, and how we would work with them. And only then, when they felt safe, did we start engaging with them. And I must say, it's really important. One of the key things was not to go in immediately with a very technical, structured interview that was clearly saying, this is what we need from you. It was to give them the moment to tell us the story that is important to you. And only when we felt that they had got to that point and we felt that we understood that, did we start to say, okay, well, can you help us understand a little bit more over here or a little bit more over there? So they were in control and driving the research as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. And another question for you in terms of kind of the logistics, I'll say a few because they're kind of connected. How long was the project? And then when was the design, how much of it was applied and how true was it to the original design?
So the length of the project, it started in early 2018. We are just getting to the point now where the service is transitioning from the place where we have been working there, where services are born in their new design, and it's transitioning it to business as usual just in the next couple of months. So it's a long project. In terms of how close it was to the original design, it was an iterative process. So everything that I presented is absolutely what is out there now and is being scaled, and so much more. I'd love to spend some more time talking to you all about it, but yeah, it's you know, obviously there was lots of iteration. Some of the most complex conversations were around how do you take the black and white of the law and you play with those words in a way that makes it accessible for people to understand what they're being asked to do. And the judges, you know, that's their bread and butter. That's the thing that they pay a lot of attention to. And we had to work quite hard to get them satisfied that this change in language was meeting the law.
That's awesome. A question for all of you about your respective topics. Was there anything that was surprising to you as you were diving into these topics, something you might not have been expecting that you uncovered or experienced?
Maybe I can start with the entire natural ecosystems and the omnichannel. So I think in the process of working out on this topic, right, the discovery is in seeing a lot of reflection across our natural ecosystem. There's so much to learn. I think in Marina, we were having this discussion around biomimicry, right? I mean, that's something I did not bring into the topic today because a lot of biomimicry that we see today, we are trying to mimic a lot of forms, a lot of properties. So very tangible kind of processes. However, I think there's still a lot more work that we can do around the entire service ecosystem and how we can emulate that from, you know, the larger ecosystem. And that is really important. I think reflecting back into the entire service ecosystem is really important to understand the holistic view so that we can map out the dependencies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I remember with biomimicry, when we were preparing for this talk, you kind of had that difference between how it's approached and kind of that next level version of it. Anyone else want to chime in, or we can move on?
I could perhaps throw in something there. It's at least if I understood the question correctly. What I've found very interesting is how people are not interested in testing and evaluating their interventions. Very often with clients, we'll have a budget for developing, but not for testing or evaluating. And usually they don't test it after we're finished with the project either. And for me, that is so strange, because if we're not testing whether the changes we're making are having the desired effects, why are we making any changes at all? And I think I see that a lot also in service design in general, that we make something and we're all super excited and we have so much belief in it, but we don't actually test whether it works the way we think it will work. And I think that's something to take away also from behavioral design, that's a method that's very built around testing the effects of your interventions.
Interesting. I can't decide if that is surprising to me as well or not. I mean, I think infusing the culture of service design hopefully necessitates, in a best case scenario, that people would actually embody and have that eagerness to test. Why do you think that is? Why do you think there is that resistance to testing?
I think it's maybe because we think, okay, we tested it at like an early stage and it had promising results, so we don't need to. It could be one reason. Another reason could be a fear of, what if it doesn't work? This thing that I put so much work and effort into isn't working, then I have to, like, all that work has been for waste. And of course, that isn't true. I mean, you've learned so much on the way, but it can still feel that way, that you've failed. So maybe like a dual thing, because if you find an effect directly after making something, that doesn't mean that it actually has the effect a month or a year after. So that's also an element there. It's being patient and saying, okay, but does it stick?
Yeah. To me, that also kind of plays into the idea of metrics, of what kinds of things are we truly testing, which I guess I feel like in the behavior sciences realm, maybe it's a little bit easier to identify those, that rather than in a service design capacity. Sometimes it's not always obvious, but I wonder if that's a factor too, that we're not quite sure what the metrics could be in terms of true effectiveness and change, especially because it's so complex.
I think that's a very good point.
David, you're welcome to chime in, or there's another separate question for you.
I'm happy to move on to another question, thanks.
So someone asks, could you say a little bit more about having the judges and caseworkers act as researchers? What did those sessions look like? Yeah,
absolutely. So it was all about trying to bring a tool set into the room and onboard people into those roles very quickly and make them familiar with the sense of and you know, giving them the permission to feel like, hang on, I've got a real role to play here in the design process. It's, you know, it's something that we all know, that design is a facilitated thing as opposed to something that is done to someone. And so things as simple as, you know, providing clipboards with predefined scripts and inquiries that ask them to then build their own question sets to then explore a safari of room of insights. And, you know, this isn't just one session, there are several sessions like this. So they became more familiar and kind of started to just slot in. They knew, okay, they're coming to a session with us. They know they're going to turn up and they're going to be asked not to sit there and listen and validate, but actually to sit there and stand up then and play a role in the room. And equally then, in terms of moving from research to design, what we tried to do is make sure that ideas and insights and solutions that were bubbling up through other conversations were packaged often into sort of modular jigsaw puzzles that during sessions they could pick up and play with and stick together and say, okay, so yeah, this is, you know, there's some enablement process that we could put, and we could take this other person who's never played that enablement role together, we could put it together. And so they started again feeling confident and familiar with picking up ideas and feeling empowered to make design decisions. So in the same way that it was making appellants feel safe about playing a role in research, it was about supporting people to feel enabled and empowered to play new roles in their day-to-day. And really, as part of that sort of growing a community of design-led change, it was really giving them that sense of confidence that they can think about change in quite a different way.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So it is 7:49. Do we have time for one more question, or shall we move on? I just want to check with the group. Okay, well, I think we will move on to allow the next session. But thank you so very much for your talks and for this Q&A and engaging in this dialogue. And I wish you all the best with your projects.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Thank you.